announced when we did our half-year results that we were looking at a number of big capital projects, particularly the Maputo Port project, and we indicated then that some of these big projects that we are looking at may require some additional capital, and that's really where we are now. We've been working with Remgro for some time, and we've now come up with a raising which allows the investors, the current shareholders, to participate, and also brings a very strategic shareholder into the Grindrod fold.
Looking at this deal specifically, I mean, it's a subscription price of 15 Rand per share. That's an 8.8% premium to the unaffected 30-day, weighted average price. Good deal in your books?
Yes, no, I think it is a good deal. I think it's a fair deal for both Remgro, a very fair deal for Remgro, and also a good deal for Grindrod shareholders that have been invested for some time.
Let's take a look at the way Grindrod shareholders can participate here, because there are specifics to take into consideration.
What Grindrod has done is they've obviously going to have proposed that we issue 2 billion rands worth of shares to Remgro. What Remgro have undertaken is to offer that to the current shareholders, or the qualifying shareholders of Grindrod, that they can actually claw back on the same basis. So they have a right to take up their proportionate allocation of shares. So for every 100 shareholders 100 shares that a shareholder has, they will be able to acquire 28.67 shares.
We've got the transaction remaining subject to the fulfillment of a number of conditions, including the approval of 75 majority vote by Grindrod's shareholders in a general meeting. Where do you think things stand in terms of being able to tick all of those boxes for approval?
Well, I think that's the most important thing. We have a general meeting, which is in about a month's time. I think it's scheduled for the 24th of October. At which you rightly point out we'll need 75% of the shareholders voting for this transaction. Certainly we believe it's positive. The feedback we've had from the shareholders that we've had discussions with have generally been positive. And I think they really like the pipeline of capital expenditure that we have, the development of the ports and terminals on the back of this enormous commodity demand, particularly the demand for coal that we're seeing out of this region.
Just what kind of kick do you see this providing to the group's pipeline of strategic capital projects?
Well, firstly, what it does immediately is it strengthens Grindrod's balance sheet substantially, from a gearing of around 48% down to a gearing of around about 10%. But what that obviously does is that allows us to go ahead and develop the projects we've been working on. I indicated at half year that when we did our results that we were looking very hard at Maputo. That is developing quite nicely, and clearly this balance sheet allows us to take it to the next stage, which is really to start getting to a position where we can do more work, geotechnical work, to assess what is really required in terms of developing that 20 million tonne facility in Maputo, coal facility in Maputo.
Yeah. Can you give us any indications of further funding solutions that you're looking at this stage? Because you're still sitting with an excess or a gap of 8 billion rand when it comes to funding of these projects, where the total or the transformational capital expenditure program requires in excess of 10 billion rand.
Well, clearly this gives us the capacity that we need to put the equity into the projects. Funding, long-term funding for this sort of project is definitely required, and the kind of funding that we would be looking for is somewhere around about 75%, with an equity contribution of around about 25% in these major infrastructural projects.
Yep, but how do you see your gearing level being affected? Because you mentioned that this now brings it down to 10%, but when we chatted at your results period, you said that gearing could be taken up to 100%.
Yeah, absolutely, and because we're a capital intensive business, both ships and infrastructure are very capital intensive. And also during this program of development, these projects are long-term projects. The port of Maputo, for instance, the coal terminal, it's going to be 3 or 4 years to construct that facility before you start getting any earnings out of that. And clearly that is going to have an impact on the gearing of the business. We as a company have a benchmark of somewhere between 75 and 100% gearing that we believe is a comfortable level of gearing for the business. Now clearly during this process, you may get up to a slightly higher level for a short period of time, but that's the kind of level of gearing we would be comfortable with.